I'm still talking with Chris Eyre, who does have a history of involvement in British politics with the Liberal Democratic Party, thus showing he shares with me a penchant for working with people who don't win very often.
Oh, absolutely. As I was mentioning, I think the only person I'd ever voted for who won was myself on a few occasions in local elections.
So, yes, and of course, small parties tend to often have better luck with local elections than with national politics. I guess over there, just like here, yeah. Our Libertarian and Greens parties, which would be the right and the left, small parties here, both have quite a number of local officials. I mean, nothing like a majority around the country, but they do have actual influence. But whereas at the national level, they don't manage to make much of a splash. And part of that is your first past the post, which is, except for the fact that we have the primary elections to weed the field first, similar to ours. But I would guess that would be a first thing, and I don't want to discuss at some length because there's so many voting options, but very frequently a large number of members of parliament are elected by a plurality. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we use first past the post for all elections here, apart from European elections, and in Northern Ireland they have a different system for historical reasons. But yes, it's first past the post.
Yeah. But theoretically, ours is first past the post, but the primary election tends to weed out to some extent, and then ballot access reduces the total numbers. So on the average, most of the members of Congress and the senators are elected with 50% or more of the vote, simply because the two-party system tends that way. But right now we have, and I don't know how much anybody other than me in the United States, because I follow elections elsewhere, especially Canada, where I was born. But also I lived in Guyana, which is another British Commonwealth territory, so have observed parliamentary politics. There's two interesting things about this that I want to ask you about. Your labor leadership, where we have people resigning from the shadow cabinet, which is an interesting phrase to me in itself. Most Americans wouldn't know what a shadow cabinet is, so put that into your answer. And then the second point is that, well, the members of the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, have voted no confidence in the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. He remains party leader because, unlike in many parliamentary systems, he is not elected by the Parliamentary Labour Party. So try to untangle that a bit for Americans who have different complications.
Oh, crumbs. Where to start? I think the place to start is that the Labour Party has a moderately complicated voting system, but which gives these days a lot of weight to the actual membership of the Labour Party. It also gives a voting bloc to trades unions, because trades unions and the cooperative societies were the founders of the Labour Party originally. And obviously it gives votes to the parliamentary party. But the membership is able to outvote the other two blocks. The result was that Jeremy Corbyn got elected as leader of the party against the wishes of a sizable proportion of the parliamentary party last year.
Let me interrupt you on something here real quick.
Sure.
Because I think membership of the Labour Party is a little bit confusing to Americans, where your membership in the party is set simply by when you vote, register to vote. In most states, you specify which party you are a member of, and the parties themselves have no control. To be a member of the Labour Party, that would be a subscription, or and so you would that's a level of involvement above being a voter who happened to say, I like Labour, when they registered.
Indeed, so you'd have to subscribe to be a member, and you are then subject to party discipline, and you can be thrown out of the party for doing various things which would be inconsistent with membership of that party, which in fact was done very considerably back in the days of Tony Blair, when they threw out a lot of the harder left membership of the party. Was largely called militant tendency at the time, and it was not so much socialist as communist in character. That was a huge move to the right for the Labour Party, which of course got Blair elected 3 times. I think when Corbyn was elected by the party membership, it was a huge shock to the MPs, who had mostly come to the fore during the Blair days, and they were looking at support for a party which was marginally centre-left, if you want to be terribly polite to it, rather than the socialist Social Democratic Party, which it had been at one point. And Corbyn is an old-style socialist who has clung on through those years, and in voting for him, the party, at a membership level, decided that it had had enough of pretending to be conservatives with a human face, and it actually wanted to go back to its socialist roots, which I thoroughly approve of. Having 2 Tory parties in the country is utterly ridiculous.
Okay, so the Parliamentary Labour Party, which is the members of Parliament who are members of Labour,
yes,
votes no confidence in their leader, which
yes,
at this point, as I understand it, is a little bit like a referendum in that it doesn't actually have any force, because they don't elect the leader in the first place.
Absolutely right. They don't elect the leader these days, and in order for there to be a proper leadership challenge, a mechanism within the Labour Party would have to be implemented, which it could be at any point. And one of the ways to implement that is for a candidate to get the support of over 50 sitting MPs, at which point there can be a challenge. Corbyn, of course, did get the support of 50 MPs for his leadership challenge last year, and at the moment only appears to have the support of 40. So, but he's the sitting candidate, so things are slightly different with him, and he has definitely said that he has a mandate from the party members, and he has no intention of standing down. And if there's a leadership challenge, he will stand again. and frankly, most commentators expect that he would win as a result of the party membership again.
So the Labour Party looks like it's stuck with this fight, because unless there's another election, the parliamentary Labour Party remains the same, other than a few by-elections, which isn't going to be that big of a factor.
Yes, indeed so. My suspicion is that the bulk of the parliamentary Labour Party think that Corbyn's policies are too far left to get the party as a whole into government. They see the prospect with the Conservative Party being in a shambles because it's split over Brexit, of the being a general election, and they're terrified that they can't make capital on that because they have a leader who's unelectable. I personally think they're wrong about that. I think the mood of the country has turned somewhat, in much the same way as in some quarters it might be seen to have turned in favour of Bernie Sanders. Corbyn is a bit like our version of Bernie Sanders, except he's, as you might expect from the difference between the political centre of the two countries, Corbyn is left of where Bernie Sanders is by a significant margin.
Okay, and since you have a history with the Liberal Democratic Party,
Yes.
Where do the Liberal Democrats stand? I mean, after the last election, they were pretty much beat to a pulp for having been the coalition partners of the Conservatives.
Yes.
So where would they stand in the current thing? I've seen some stories that the Liberal Democrats might benefit from fractures in the other two parties, in the two majors.
That's certainly a possibility. We are not quite so much anymore a two-party system as the States. Neglecting Northern Ireland and Scotland, to an extent Wales, where there are national parties, as well as in at least Scotland and Wales, the UK parties. There's been a tendency for quite a while, that would be, I say, since the late 70s, for Labour, Conservative and the Liberal Democrats to be polling something around about 30 to 35% each. Usually, well, Labour or Conservative has always been top in that, and there's a strong tendency for the Liberal Democrats to be squeezed out in the actual vote. But that did result in, at not last year's election, but the one 6 years ago, in the Liberal Democrats having over 50 seats. They now are down to 8. The Liberal Democrats, however, are the most Europe-friendly party of any of the main parties. A lot of the minor parties are also Europe-friendly, but the Liberal Democrats have always favoured not only membership of Europe, but closer integration in Europe, the way the country as a whole maybe doesn't like things going at present. So they would stand next time on the basis of we should stay in Europe and cuddle up with the Europeans policy. And as there's some fracture in Labour, there were 10 Labour MPs joined the Brexit camp. and there's a huge fracture in the Conservatives, where massive numbers favour Brexit. It is possible that a stay in Europe vote could coalesce around the Liberal Democrats, and they could pull back the lost voting share and do really quite well. It'd take a miracle to vault from 8 MPs to a parliamentary majority, but back to 50, 60, 70, 80 is not by any means out of the question, and that would make a difference, because I don't expect Scotland to go anywhere but Scottish National in the near future. So that's itself a voting bloc of 55 MPs.
Okay, well, I think two things. One, I think we're running out of time, and also your video has gone haywire, at least as I see it.
It has, as I see it too.
So I think we'll call that it for now. We could get into the esoteric discussion of coalition governments, which Americans don't understand.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think we won't do that today. We'll leave that for a future time. And as part of our announcements, I would expect for the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be recording these conversations separately. I'll record with Elgin Hushbeck and with Chris, and possibly with a couple of other contributors over the next 3 to 4 weeks before we'll resume Global Christian Perspectives. We are working on using some new software, so watch for a lot of changes, and Energion.co/discuss is where these will be posted on Saturday morning. So with that, Chris, thanks for your time. Hopefully this will help some Americans understand what's going on across the pond. And we'll look forward to chatting with you and some more. Maybe we can talk coalitions.
Might help some English people as well. You never know.
Okay, with that, we'll close this one.